It's very nice to be here with so many people around the world, and especially being one of the coordinators of the Rudolf Steiner branch in São Paulo. And I see that my two colleagues that coordinate the branch with me are here also. And one of them, Rogério Santos, is now one of the secretaries of the Brazilian Anthroposophical Society. Well, it's very nice to have you all here. I have to apologize for my English. We lived in Austin, Texas, and I saw that there are people from Austin, Texas here. But at that time, there were almost no anthroposophists in Austin, Texas. That was 1970 for 1 year. And since then, I didn't have had the opportunity just to practice my English. So I have to apologize if things are not so clear, and especially I'm not so fluent anymore. But I'll try my best. Where I am. The theme I chose to speak today is the path of the 12 holy nights through the Zodiac. And I based it on Sergei Prokofieff's book, Die 12 heiligen Nächte und die geistigen Hierarchien. This is the 12 holy nights and the spiritual hierarchies. The number 12 reminds us of the annual cycle, and through this, of our close relationship with the cosmos that surrounds it. In the ancient Nordic mystery centers, the time around the darkest nights of the year was considered special. At that time, it was known that the cosmic powers that govern the annual cycle during the 12 months of the year were concentrated in the 12 nights between December 25 and January 6. Rudolf Steiner suggested that during these days we go deeper into these 12 sacred forces of the universe, represented symbolically by the 12 signs of the zodiac. From the terrestrial point of view, at Christmas, December 25, we celebrate the birth of the human being, Jesus of Nazareth. The Epiphany, January 6, commemorates the birth of the Son of God, Christ, the highest spirit in our universe, who, at the baptism by John the Baptist, entered the body of Jesus of Nazareth. These celebrations are like the portals or pillars between which are the 12 holy nights, like a cosmic ladder, like 12 steps that connect humanity from the earthly consciousness to the sphere of the highest cosmic spirituality. Christ came down from the region of the Father, which is beyond the zodiac, passing through all zodiac regions until he arrived on Earth. We will start from the human sphere and go through the 9 hierarchies to the highest levels of the spheres of the Holy Spirit and of the Son of God, Christ, related to the zodiac. In the 12 holy nights, the great challenge is to take this opposite path, of which we can say that this is the path of the man Jesus of Nazareth, earthly consciousness, to Christ, the highest cosmic spirituality. That is, we take the path from Jesus to Christ. The path through the 12 regions of the zodiac passes through an ascending ladder of the hierarchies to the region of the divine spiritual origin of the universe. It starts with the sign of Pisces, the constellation related to the origin of the human being on earth. And it is under this sign that the human being begins to turn again towards the spiritual world. And the path culminates in Aries, the portal through which the Christ has entered our cosmos, coming from the sphere of the Father, which lies beyond the zodiac. On the 13th night, which represents the conclusion, one comes to touch the highest cosmic sphere, which lies beyond the zodiac. From there came the Christ. First, I will show you the modern zodiac wheel, showing the 12 signs used in horoscopic astrology. Now I have to share. Can you see it?
Yes, everything is good.
Okay, then let's go down. No, up. Gee, no. Let me stop, please. Giramo. Como é que eu chego? Então, isso.
I'm sorry.
Não foi essa. Yeah, no, it's not this one. Yes, I have a problem with technology and my backup doesn't work anymore.
No, no problem. We can see it. So if you can just press on
Não, era esse.
audience view, so it will be better.
On the slides and go over to the left and it'll say begin slide.
Well, I will put the share, but ainda tem esse todo aqui do lado.
Sim, você tem que fazer aqui.
Ah, tá. Esse aqui? Não.
Are you seeing the
Very
first
good.
screen?
We have first slide.
E aqui? Eu tiro isso?
Sim.
Oh, that's my problem. And now.
Ok, eu sei que é essa.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Fiz aqui, não.
Agora eu quero meu texto. Yeah. So there we are. Here you can see the zodiac signs in a row according to the months. Now we are in December, Capricorn, January, February, Pisces, and so on. And the signs usually used for that. But we can relate the signs of the zodiac with the human body. And this we will see right now. You see, Pisces is related to the feet, the fish, no, Pisces.
I don't know how to say that. Maybe it's Pisces. It's better to say fish, Sonia.
Aquarius corresponds to the legs, Capricorn to the knees, Sagittarius to the thighs, Scorpio to the reproductive organs, Libra to the pelvis, Virgo to the digestive system, Leo, the lion, to the heart, Cancer here to the chest, Gemini to the shoulders and the arms, Taurus, the bull, to the neck, and Aries to the head. And there is another nice picture, a medieval one, showing exactly the same. Now it's with a nice lady. And here all the pictures around representing the signs of the zodiac. And now let us see the relationship of the signs of the zodiac with the hierarchy. Pisces has to do with the human being. If he reaches the goal of the evolution, he will be the 10th hierarchy. Aquarius has to do with the angels, and Steiner called them the spirits of life. Capricorn is related to the archangels, the spirits of fire. Sagittarius is related to the archai, the spirits of personality. Scorpio is in connection with the exousiae, the spirits of form, the ones who gave us the eye. Libra is related to dynamis, the spirits of movement, who gave us the astral body. Virgo, the divine Isis Sophia, is connected to the Kyriotetes, the spirits of wisdom, which gave us the etheric body. Leo relates to the thrones, the spirits of will, who gave us the physical body. And Cancer is related to the cherubim, the spirits of harmony. Gemini is connected to the seraphim, the spirits of love. Taurus, to the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, and Aries, to the sphere of the sun, of the mystic Lamb, the Christ. This is a slide with the signs Rudolf Steiner painted, or in fact, I don't know if it's a painting or what it is, but for each of these zodiac signs. And they are quite different from the ones usually used. And I didn't find the explanations Steiner gave on them. I don't know where it was. I tried to find it on internet, but I didn't succeed. And this could be a challenge for a further research, or maybe someone of you know it and have done this research. That would have been fine. But in some of these signs, I think to have found something interesting, and I'll bring these ideas to you, but just as my ideas. And now I'm going to describe some characteristics of each of these zodiacal spheres and their relationship with the corresponding hierarchy. And we'll start with Pisces. In the human body, Pisces correspond to the feet. The arch structure of the feet exists only in the human being, and is what allows us the upright position. And that is what makes us truly human. The feet establish the correct relation of the human being with the earth. In the middle of our Earth's first evolutionary period, Hyperborea, our universe was under the sign of Pisces. During this period, the sun separated from the earth, starting to act from the outside, and Christ left the earth with the sun. Therefore, darkness began to reign within the human being. That is, the human being had to know the earthly realm through his senses. The forces of Pisces that acted in Hyperborea will act again when, after conquering individual freedom in darkness, the spiritual inner sun begins to rise in the human being. This will be in our current time, which is under the sign of Pisces. Only then the human being may turn again towards the spiritual world, when little by little, inside the human soul, the higher I begins to awaken. This is when we should reach the experience of the etheric Christ as the sun in our souls. The evolution of mankind goes from light through darkness, returning to light. At the end of the entire evolutionary process, the human being will have developed a spirit man, becoming then the 10th hierarchy. Jesus of Nazareth was prepared to receive the Christ being, and Pisces was a symbol of the bearer of Christ. Now we go a step further to Aquarius, which is related to the angels or the spirits of life. As we saw in the human body, Aquarius corresponds to the legs. We start now with the entities of the third hierarchy, which are the closest to the human being. On the hierarchical scale, the angels are just above the human being. They don't have a materialized physical body like humans. Their densest body is the etheric body. And water is the physical expression of the substantiality of the cosmic ether, which constitutes the etheric body of the human being and of the angels. The etheric body relates to life, the water of life. And remember, Steiner calls the angels children or spirits of life. The etheric body also keeps the memory. And on earth, the task of the angels is to guide each human being in its successive incarnations. They keep the memory of one incarnation to the next, as long as the human being is unable to do so on his own. And also, the etheric body is the basis of thinking. On Steiner's seal, there is an image that could represent an angel. Instead of feet, water of life. In our language, Portuguese, remember is recordar, which has in it the word cordis, in Latin, heart. We remember what we learned by heart. So this could correspond to the middle part. The physical basis for thinking is the head. The angel reveals the spiritual ideal the human being should follow. It serves as a model to the human being, which he must reach by the end of the terrestrial evolution. Today, every person can have direct contact with his angel if he decides to follow the path of spiritual development given by the modern science of the spirit. The starting point and the safest foundation is the spiritualization of thinking. This must become alive and fluid. This means etheric. In this etheric thinking, one succeeds in receiving the impulses of the angel. And the angel will lead the human being to the imaginative world. In the Zodiac, the sign of Aquarius points to the ideal spiritual human being. Rudolf Steiner tells us that those who cannot consciously reach the first glimpse of this high ideal in our fifth post-Atlantean period through the path of self-development will have this opportunity in a natural way as a donation from their angel in the sixth post-Atlantean period, which will be under the sign of Aquarius. An angelic being acted through John the Baptist. In Mark, 1st chapter, verse 2, it says, "Behold, I send my angel before you, who will prepare your way before you." The loosening of the etheric body by John's baptism, producing a near-death experience, allowed the baptized person to directly experience his angel, which pointed him to the Christ entity who was approaching the earth. Now we go a step further to Capricorn, that is related to the archangels or spirits of fire. In the human body, Capricorn corresponds to the knees and is also related to the archangels, who are just above the angels. On the ancient sun, when air and light appeared, the archangels were developing their eye, and their evolution allowed them to give something to the cosmic space. It was the light. As Rudolf Steiner said, if a light strikes us, there are archangels behind it. On our earth, the archangels not only generate external light, but also inner spiritual light. In the northern hemisphere, well, we don't have this experience now. The period linked to Capricorn is the darkest time of the year. The new spiritual sun rises in the darkness of winter. Thus, the brightness of the new spiritual sun in the nocturnal darkness of winter has its origin in the forces of the archangels. The archangel Michael is related to the preparation of the birth of the spiritual son Christ on earth. In summer, the spirit and the soul of the earth leave the planetary body, allowing Ahriman to enter. And every year, Ahriman tries to avoid the spiritual sun to arise in this darkest and coldest period. So, in autumn, between September and December, Michael fights with the dragon Ahriman to purify the earth again, overcoming him. The culmination of this purification takes place in the last week of Advent, when Capricorn begins to act. On Steiner's seal, we see in the middle part the horns of Capricorn, and below the fish tail. What about this curious figure on the top? Could it represent the forces of darkness? It's a question I have. One can say that the archangels are the celestial guardians and the inspirers of the 12 holy nights, which occur precisely under the sign of Capricorn. In the historical evolution of humanity, this opposition between the natural darkness and the ascending forces of the spiritual sun will culminate at the end of the 6th post-Atlantean period, and especially in the 7th post-Atlantean period, under the action of the Capricorn forces. Now we go to Sagittarius, which it's related to the archai, the spirits of personality. In the human body, Sagittarius corresponds to the thighs. When our human evolution began on the ancient Saturn, the archai were developing their eye, their personality. The first step the human being takes to become truly human is to achieve a upright position. Observing the child who learns to stand, one notices that it always tries again and falls to the horizontal position until finally conquering the upright position. This is the image of the centaur, human in its upper part, animal in the lower. This relation between the human and the animal represents the continuous battle between verticality and horizontality, which the human being has to win. The human being conquers verticality with the help from the archai. The upright position is the first manifestation of the human personality. Thus, it is the premise for the emergence of self-consciousness. On Steiner's seal, maybe, it's my idea, the luminous, upright figure in the front would represent the development of the human part, and the dark figure behind, lying on the ground, the animal part. The arrow of Sagittarius represents the active force of thinking. The archai sustain the cosmic thoughts, the cosmic intelligence in human evolution. The arrow consciously launched by the bow also represents the human will being directed to a certain purpose. And the purpose of mankind is to reach at the end of the evolutionary process on the future Vulcan the level at which the archai are today, who on the ancient Saturn were developing their eye as we are doing now, but in other circumstances. A kind of prophetic anticipation will occur in the period that follows the 7th post-Atlantean period, but it will manifest itself already a little bit at the end of this period. At the beginning of the apocalyptic war of all against all, mankind will receive from the sphere of the archai the first impulses of the spirit man, Atman. This will happen when the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere enters Sagittarius. Then the figure of Sagittarius will be spiritually divided, giving rise to two races on earth. The good race, which develops the upper part of Sagittarius, the human part, and the bad race, which develops the lower part of Sagittarius, the animal part. Human beings who will offer their forces to serve Christ will be part of the good race. And these forces will come from the archai who guide humanity in the sense of Christ. The next step is Scorpio, an eagle in the future that is related to the exousiae, or spirits of form. In the human body, Scorpio corresponds to the reproductive organs. And with Scorpio, we reach the second hierarchy, made up of even higher beings. Already on ancient Saturn, the exousiae, which are the Elohim mentioned in the Old Testament, prepared themselves for their mission of bringing order and providing structure to the future human being on Earth. And on Earth, they are the creators and conductors of all terrestrial evolution. They give form to all that exists. The exousiae receive the forces they need to act from the constellation of Scorpio, eagle. In Lemuria, they donated some of their own substance to the human being. We got our eye. And the mystery of the eye is hidden in the double image of the scorpion and the eagle. Because by the Luciferic temptation, by eating the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, the human eye obtained, with the possibility to become free, a certain tendency to evil. This is beautifully shown in Leonardo's Holy Supper. The longing of the human eye towards its highest ideal, the divine eye, is represented by John, who later became the evangelist, seated at the right hand of Christ. And his symbol is the eagle. The selfish eye, in the service of its own purposes, is represented by Judas, Scorpio. And between both is Peter, willing to make the greatest sacrifice. As Christ said, "You are the stone." But he also has the disposition for betrayal, for denial. However, his longing is towards the sacrifice. He is leaning towards John. The human eye that evolves correctly longs for spiritual life, that is the eagle. The selfish I hates the spiritual light and flees from it. The scorpion seeks darkness. It kills himself in the presence of light. In the middle of Atlantis, there was a time ruled by Scorpio. It was when the human being for the first time stepped on solid ground and his body was mineralized thanks to the work of the exousiae. The image of the eagle is forward-looking. For the spiritualization of all forms created by the fully developed human eye. This task falls to John the Evangelist, initiated by Christ. That's why his symbol is the eagle. On Steiner's seal, we can recognize the duality, also here. Scorpio below, structure, darkness, and the eagle above, flying in the light to the future. In the middle, the human being with the two possibilities of good and evil. Now we come to Libra, connected with the dynamis, or spirits of movement. In the human body, Libra corresponds to the pelvis. The spirits of movement belong also to the second hierarchy and are mainly in the sun sphere. Their forces act from the sun to the planets and from these to the earth. The planets of our solar system constitute a stable whole because they are in a movement that remains in balance. From a spiritual point of view, this is due to the dynamis. According to inspirative knowledge, this interaction of the forces of our solar system conducted by the dynamis constitutes the music of the spheres, which is the living expression of dynamic balance. On Earth, its representation is the chemical condition of matter, which manifests itself in the dynamic balance of aggregation or binding and separation. The same way as the exousiae are the rulers of our earth, the dynamis were the guides on the ancient moon. Our mission on Earth is to develop free will and selfless love. The mission on the ancient moon was to develop wisdom. On Earth, this wisdom is internalized in this dynamic. On Steiner's seal, I have a question. Does this seal represent the solar entities, dynamis, acting from the sun to the earth, here, the upper part, in balance with the lower part, representing them acting in matter, the chemical process? Just a question. Virgo is related to the Kyriotetes, or spirits of wisdom. In the human body, Virgo corresponds to the digestive system. The highest beings of the second hierarchy are the Kyriotetes, or spirits of wisdom. The primordial wisdom of the universe is represented by the image of the celestial virgin, the divine Sophia. In the book of Revelation, chapter 12, there is this imagination of the woman whose garment is the sun. She has 12 stars around her head, and the moon is at her feet. This is Steiner's apocalyptic seal representing this woman with the stars around her hair, the sun as the garment, and standing on the moon. And there is the dragon that wants to kill the being that is going to be born. She represents the acting of the wise forces of Virgo region in the 3 previous incarnations of Earth. The ancient Saturn is symbolized by the 12 stars, the ancient moon by the garment, and she stands, the ancient sun by the garment, and she stands on the ancient moon. And standing on the moon represents the sublimation of lunar forces by the higher solar forces. Similar characteristics are found in Luke's Mary. This is a painting by Antonio Chiseri in the 19th century called Immaculata, the Immaculate. And we see also the stars around her head, standing on the moon, even the evil forces. Well, she is not dressed by the sun. But Luke's Mary is the earthly expression of the heavenly Sophia. She has a relationship with the cosmos, the 12 stars, Saturn. She gives birth to the bearer of the universal spiritual sun. She is pure and innocent. This means she sublimated the lunar forces. And at the time of the baptism in the Jordan, Luke's Mary transferred these forces to the Mary described by Matthew. As well as the exousiae are the rulers of our earth, and the dynamis were the guides on the ancient moon, the Kyriotetes were the rulers on the ancient sun, to whom they irradiated their own essence, spiritual wisdom, Sophia. We saw already that the outer expression of wisdom occurred in ancient. On earth, it would become a creative, dynamic wisdom inside the human being. The next sign is Leo, related to the thrones or spirits of will. In the human body, Leo corresponds to the heart, and we have reached the first hierarchy, the highest one. We have seen that the beings of the second hierarchy are linked to the guidance of our earth, the exousiae, the ancient moon, dynamis, and the ancient sun, Kyriotetes. The thrones are the guides of the ancient Saturn, which came into being by the cosmic sacrifice they offered to the cherubim. On the ancient sun, these sacrificial forces have been transformed into dynamic inner forces that acted throughout the solar evolution. The thrones are linked to the zodiacal sign of Leo. The lion represents royal dignity, the transition of sacrificial will into courage, the disposition to accomplish inwardly by the forces of one's own innermost self what was foreseen by a spiritual higher will. On Steiner's seal, my question is, may the dark curved line here suggest this transition of sacrificial courage, no, sacrificial will into courage, and maybe this could be the heart. The Portuguese word coragem, which means courage, is formed by cor, meaning heart, and agir, that means acting. This is acting with the heart forces. For the current human being, the power of courage coming from Leo can allow him to establish a correct relationship with the hardships of destiny, to have a proper relationship with karma transition of sacrificial will into courage, and to bear karma and consciously work on it. This effort can provide a more conscious relationship with the thrones. The next step leads us to Cancer, which is related to the cherubim, or spirits of harmony. In the human body, Cancer corresponds to the chest. And ascending one more step, we have reached a cosmic period prior to the creation and evolution of the current human being. The Cancer symbol can be considered a modification of the vortex or spiral. It is an ancient symbol for the harmonious relationship between two processes or cycles. It represents the harmonious transition from one cycle to another, according to cosmic wisdom. The cherubim are the entities that lead these transitions. In the transition between the various incarnations of the earth, the pralaya corresponds to the space between the two spirals. In the period of the ancient sun, the cherubim created the zodiac in approximately the same form it still has today, acting from cosmic periphery towards the sun. They created a kind of protective external covering around the sun. And this corresponds to the symbol of Cancer when we look at its relationship with the human chest. One can note it is an image of the macrocosm. In the center of the chest is the heart, the sun, surrounded by 12 pairs of ribs, the zodiac. At the beginning of the Old Testament, the cherubim were mentioned there in relation to the expulsion from paradise. Mankind was banned from the sphere of the Father, which lies beyond the zodiac, where harmony reigns. And we could think that being expelled from paradise is the end of the first cycle of mankind development. A cherub with the sword of fire was appointed to be the guardian of the portal of the Garden of Eden, so that mankind was kept separated from the sphere of the Father to undergo the evolution on earth. That is the second cycle we are in. And Christ came from the sphere of the Father, situated beyond the Zodiac, to indicate how to go back to the spiritual world. This is the third cycle, and maybe we are beginning this work. Now we come to Gemini, which are related to the seraphim, or spirits of love. In the human body, Gemini corresponds to the shoulders and the arms. And the seraphim are the highest beings in the angelic hierarchies. The constellation related to them is Gemini, the twins. There is a myth that illustrates very well the relationship between the constellation and the spirits of love. It's the myth of Castor and Polydeuces, or Pollux. Castor was the son of Leda and King Tyndareus, and he was mortal. Pollux was the son of Leda and Zeus. He was immortal. The brothers were very close to each other and fought two other brothers when Castor was killed. Out of love for his brother, Pollux wanted to sacrifice his immortality and asked Zeus to allow him to die. As a reward for his brotherly love, Zeus placed both in the sky as the constellation of Gemini. The Greeks greatly valued the form of the physical body, which allowed them to be aware of themselves, which means to have consciousness of the I. Therefore, death, which destroyed the body, and thus the consciousness of the I on earth, was the worst that could happen. For the Greeks, sacrificing immortality was the greatest sacrifice that could be made, the highest form of love. With the advent of Christ, consanguineous love doesn't matter anymore, but the pure spiritual love of Christ. It's the love of two friends who become brothers, not by blood, but due to the new spirit of Christ. As he said, John chapter 15, verses 12 and 13. Love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And Christ himself gave his life for mankind. In the case of the human being, it is the sacrifice of the lower I, which Christ will later return as the true immortal I. To this refers the word, not I, but the Christ in me. the highest seraphic love. From the relationship of Gemini with the seraphim arise the impulses for social life, connections by reciprocal love, and common interests. Now we come to Taurus, related to the principle of the cosmic spirit or the Holy Spirit. In the human body, Taurus corresponds to the neck. And now we enter the realm of the Holy Spirit, above the angelic hierarchies. It is not easy to relate Taurus to the cosmic spirit. However, if a modern initiate observes clairvoyantly with imaginative consciousness a bull or a cow, he contemplates its powerful digestive activity as if it were a whole world. If this initiate rises to the inspirative consciousness, the cow takes a form of a bird. From the astral point of view, it would be a bird. As Rudolf Steiner said in a lecture given on October 19, 1923 in GA 230, in the cow, the astral quality of the bird became physical. When the baptism of Jesus occurred, John the Baptist, certainly in the state of inspirative consciousness, contemplated the Spirit in the form of a dove. Ancient people, up to the third post-Atlantean period, worshipped the cow or bull. It was the zodiac sign that ruled, especially in the third post-Atlantean period. The bull represented the spirit of the regular synchronic time, which seeks to approach the solar sphere. In ancient Egypt, Isis, with bull's horns on her head, symbolized her relationship with the macrocosm, and with Osiris, the sun god, represented by the solar disk contained by the bull's horns. Here we see Isis or Isis, I don't know, feeding Horus. Here the bull's horns and the sun disk, Osiris, between them. And this is another picture where she is leading the pharaoh, and also with the bull's horns on her head and the solar disk in between. And finally, we come to Aries, which is related with the principle of the Son, the Christ. In the human body, Aries corresponds to the head. The sphere of Aries is the sphere which completes the whole. The constellation is related to the head of the primordial human being. The fourth post-Atlantean period was under the sign of Aries, as the third post-Atlantean period was under the sign of Taurus, and we, in the fifth post-Atlantean period, are under the sign of Pisces. It was in the fourth post-Atlantean period that the solar being Christ penetrated, as she's of Jesus in the baptism. And John said, "Behold the Lamb of God." And so he testified the cosmic relationship of Christ with the Aries sphere. In fact, at the moment of the baptism, the highest Trinity is mirrored in the depths of earthly existence. The dove, Taurus, representing the Holy Spirit. Lamb, Aries, representing the Sun. The voice from heaven, from beyond the zodiac, is the voice from the Father. These are the 12 cosmic regions that manifest themselves in the 12 holy nights. It is a lot what I told of all this time, and I'm going to summarize at the end. On the first holy night, as human beings, we receive from the constellation of Pisces the impulses to stand on our own feet and achieve the upright position, the basic condition to achieve individual freedom, the purpose to which we are destined as individualized beings to constitute the 10th hierarchy. On the second holy night, we receive from the constellation of Aquarius the impulses of the angels, which illuminate and protect our path and point us to where we should go. On the third holy night, we receive from the constellation of Capricorn the impulses of light from the archangels to have spiritual thoughts or worldviews. On the fourth holy night, we receive the inspiration of the constellation of Sagittarius, where we have the impulses of the archive for the strengthening of the personality, related to the active force of thinking and the human will forces directed towards a purpose. On the fifth holy night, we receive from the constellation of Scorpio, Eagle, the spiritual impulses of the exousiae, who gave us the eye after bringing the hardening forces, to recognize and deal with our weaknesses, selfishness, and to aim for the transformation of the terrestrial eye into the divine eye. Not I, but the Christ in me. On the sixth holy night, we receive from the constellation of Libra the spiritual impulses of the dynamis, to develop a dynamic inner balance, relationship with the music of the spheres and with the chemical processes. On the seventh holy night, we receive from the constellation of Virgo the spiritual impulses of the Kyriotetes, which encourage us to aim for cosmic wisdom, to link ourselves to the cosmos, to engender the inner sun, and to overcome the lunar forces, impulses, and passions. On the eighth holy night, we receive from the constellation of Leo the spiritual impulses of the thrones, of the sacrificial will transformed into courage, to face the probations that karma brings us. On the 9th holy night, we receive from the constellation of Cancer the spiritual impulses of the cherubim, which bring us the necessary forces for harmonious transitions and forces of protection. On the 10th holy night, we receive from the constellation of Gemini the spiritual impulses of the seraphim, who help us to overcome the barrier of individualism and establish new social forms based on true love. On the 11th holy night, we receive from the constellation of Taurus the impulses of the Holy Spirit that can relate to the correct time, so that everything happens in its due time without anticipation, which Ahriman wants to produce, or delay, that is related to Lucifer. And on the 12th holy night, Christ himself comes to us through the portal of the constellation of Aries. He elevates the human eye from an earthly, inferior condition to a cosmic superior condition, bringing to the human being the possibility of becoming the being of freedom and love, the 10th hierarchy. And with this, I end my presentation. I hope it was not too much. It is 12 nights, many, many nights. And well, I hope I could help you to have a glimpse to what is coming through the next days. Thank you very much.
Dear Sonia, thank you to you for giving us such a wonderful meditative content for this period, for this season. Question to you. So are you able to answer some statements or questions from our audience, or we need to do like a little break?
Well,
Or sip of water? Yes or no?
yes, I'll try without a break.
Without break. Excellent. So, dear friends, do you know how to raise your hand, right? So place your cursor or arrow somewhere in the middle of your screen, bottom of your screen. So this is icon react. So click on it. And then another icon, it's raise a hand. So for example, I'm raising hand, so I did it. So let me lower my hand. And yeah, who will be first? Of course, if you have any questions or statements.
I can imagine one has to digest first all of this, and it's too much not to have an indigestion. Oh,
We have quick thinkers, some of them. So one is Nicola from UK. Nicola, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Sonia. As you say, it is a lot to digest. And yes, so I've just got one question that arose going through this huge presentation, which was to do with Rudolf Steiner's seal for Libra. I mean, in fact, obviously all the seals raise questions. They're very deep, but I was intrigued. It looks like a sunrise, doesn't it? And there is a channel into the sun as well from above. And then it looks as if it looks like you know, the dividing the, you know, the waters, the initial division. So there's this dark, there's a space, and then there's the darkness of the waters. And so it looks, you know, it looks like, you know, in Genesis, it looks like there's something of the story of Genesis in that, and, which is beautiful. And then this shape below the cross, it's the top of the cross touches there, but the other, then the two arms of the cross don't. They are contained within this shape. And then the base of the cross looks like, it looks to me as if it was, you know, with the blood. Yes, so it's not, yeah. Or is that a fire? There's something.
It could be a fire. Yes, I was thinking about that also. I don't. In fact, the Libra is the only non-living seal or sign of the zodiac. We have, well, Aquarius and Virgin and Virgo. These are men, and then we have animals. And this one is something made by human. That's very interesting also.
Yeah.
And I think this is what divides. I had sometimes also the impression here is the upper world and here is the lower world, but Christ comes to the lower world to
Yeah.
make just the balance.
Yeah.
Thank you for your ideas.
Yeah. No, yeah, all the seals are so deep, really.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. So Becky is next.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for bringing attention to this, because I know that many people look at different ways of working into the zodiac through the Holy Nights. I know Walter Johannes Stein has a path as well. And I'm just really grateful that you were looking at Sergei's. I read his book faithfully every year. So it was beautiful how you summarized and really looked at what he shared in relationship to these images. So, you know, the artist was Emma von Eckartstein, excuse me, that Rudolf Steiner asked her to find these. My understanding is she was supposed to watch the sun rising as it entered in each of these zodiac, and then for her to draw her impressions, and that these were used to be used in a true Rosicrucian temple, which was the Malsch building that they were brought into. But what I thought was amazing is if other people also have Prokofieff's book, he explains why he does his sequence, beginning with the human being going to Aries rather than going from the head down to the feet. He goes in the opposite direction. And this is because Rudolf Steiner says it's the reverse cultus of how to connect to the spiritual sun, and that we have to work from the feet to the head in this regard. And so why Prokofieff works in this value and develops this thread. And it also relates to how one would enter into the Goetheanum as a Rosicrucian building for one's development of initiation. So I really appreciated how thoughtfully you worked with these images in order to see in this imagination and gesture what Prokofieff brings with each of the zodiac, from the macrocosm to the microcosm, in his explanations. Can you sense this in this imagination? And I thought your unfoldment was absolutely beautiful and really took me in a new way of looking at them from a completely other way. So I just wanted to say thank you and wanted to let people know that if they have the book by Prokofieff, page 183 to 186 is where he describes the reason for this and Rudolf Steiner's indications that this was how the ancient Rosicrucians worked, from the seeking of the spiritual sun during these sacred times, beginning with the fishes to Aries. So I thought that was, he says it much better than I could ever, but just to indicate where people can find that as well, and to thank you so much for all the years of living with this to share with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Becky. Really, thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear friends, who will be next? Dear Sonia, looks like we are complete. So thank you for your hard work. So it's wonderful. I mean, it's so intense. It's a great content for each day of Holy Nights, which are 12 steps from human being, which are Pisces, to Christ. Because Epiphany, this is a higher holiday than Christmas, as you understand, because it's God's coming.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the invitation. It was a big challenge, but
I know. But it's so nice to have friends from Brazil for our 12 Holy Nights. So I know we have two speakers which are speaking, one from Amsterdam, second from Berlin, but it's nice to have friends in Brazil, and thank you for bringing all your friends to our sessions.
yes, greetings from all of them that were here. There were quite a lot. I'm very thankful for them also. And
Thank you
maybe
too.
this will make the relationship between us a very warm, heartly relationship.
Yeah, I'm intending to visit you guys. I mean, in São Paulo.
Yeah, well, and we have the same name, Rudolf Steiner branch.
So, dear friends, tomorrow, same time and same place. So, Martha Lowing with her astrological charts, so spiritual astrology. So, 2:00 p.m. Central Time, 5:00 São Paulo time, 8:00 London time, so 11:00 St. Petersburg and Moscow, Russia. Thank you so much. Please feel free to unmute your machines and say big thank you to Sonia.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Obrigada. Obrigada, Sonia.
Obrigada, Sonia.
Thank you, Sonia.
Спасибо, Sonia.
And thank you for all the work to bring this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Obrigada.
Bye, friends.
Thank you. Thank you.